Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ryan, and I'm a guide for the Central Park Conservancy, the nonprofit organization that takes care of Central Park year-round, helping to keep the park clean and green. Of course, we know it's not too easy for everybody to make it to the park, so we're going to continue bringing the park to you through virtual tours and virtual weekly walks. We're going to be taking a weekly walk today around Cedar Hill, a really beautiful landscape located on the East 70s in Central Park. Just about all the pictures you're going to see on today's tour were taken by myself within the last week, and we do use a couple archive photos from the New York City Municipal Archives, New York City Public Library Archives, and the New York City Park Archives, which are all public domain and photos that you can access at home. Our walk's going to be about 15 minutes, and we're going to be exploring the landscape again, Cedar Hill. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. Those who have joined us before probably know the deal, but if you want to say hello, we encourage you to use the chat feature located on the left. That'll let you say hello, maybe tell us about a favorite memory you've had here at Cedar Hill or in Central Park, as well as just let us know where you're joining us from. I will launch a few polls that you'll see that'll pop up, and once you answer those, they'll disappear. But if anybody has a question throughout the walk today, you can use the Q&A feature, and my colleague Ian will be on the back end answering questions for us. Without any further ado, let's jump right into our walk of the beautiful Cedar Hill landscape. This is the route we're going to be taking, and we're starting just over on East 79th Street and 5th Avenue. This entrance to the park is otherwise known as Miners Gate, a really interesting little way that'll bring us right into Cedar Hill. And immediately upon walking into this location, we're going to be greeted by some beautiful different blooms that we have starting up here in the park. This is going to be spider flower. Spider flower is a genius of different flowers, and basically each kind of color can be really its own separate species. But a really beautiful little piece that has really beautiful colors as well as really beautiful stems. You can see it gets the word spider flower from all those little dangly leg looking things sticking out. I really love looking at the stems of these though, because they have this really cool kind of twisted effect on them. But a really beautiful flower that will immediately greet us as we walk into the park at Miners Gate. And as we start to continue along, we can see Cedar Hill just peeking out in the back. But we're going to continue walking just down to this right side path over here. And as we come by, we're going to see some other pretty cool flowers like common boneset. Common boneset or boneset is also nicknamed, like the sweating plant rather. The reason it's kind of nicknamed the sweating plant is because Native Americans actually use this to help pass fevers by inducing heavy sweating. So don't rub up against this plant too much or you might get a little sweaty. But on this plant, we can actually see two of Central Park's great gardeners, bumblebees and honeybees. Of course, some really great pollinators that can be found all throughout the world and that are very, very important for carrying along natural flowers like this. This is a native flower that a lot of different insects get used from. So we want to say thank you to two of our natural gardeners for keeping this plant pollinated. As we continue walking up, we're going to start seeing some of the large trees that line the east side or the north side of Cedar Hill. And as we start to walk up the path, we can see some of these beautiful big spruce trees. Continuing just to the left over here, we'll take a quick break and look at some of these beautiful spruces just on our right-hand side. Beyond just cedars, we can also find spruces like this Norway spruce. And you can learn about a lot of these different spruces from the plaques you'll find on trees along this way that make up the East 85th to East 60th Street tree walk. A lot of different tree walks that'll take you through different landscapes and teach you about some of the many different varieties of trees we have growing here in Central Park. And I highly recommend visiting Cedar Hill after about 2 or 3 p.m. because then you get the beautiful sun kind of setting just on the wet side, peeking through a lot of these different spruce and pine trees. But really great views to have all throughout the Cedar Hill area, no matter what time of the day you come. But as we continue just down the path, we'll start to see some of that large hill that makes up Cedar Hill. Just to the left of this large hill, we have this smaller kind of meadow area that we pass by to start our walk. So you might know Cedar Hill from a couple different things. If you come in the park early in the morning to this area, you may know it as Puppy Hill because you will see an overwhelming amount of dogs running around the top and lower meadow as dog owners enjoy off-leash hours between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. in Central Park. But if you've come to the park in the winter, you may know Cedar Hill as something different. You may know it as arguably the best area to go sledding in Central Park. After snowstorms, heavy snowstorms where you get about 6 inches of snow or more, these different hills and areas of Central Park become prime spots for both kids and adults to go sledding. This is a photo after one of the larger winter storms we had in 2018, but you can see the entire hill becomes used. You actually start from the top of the hill and you go right over the walkway that we're walking over right now, which is where some of these people are. But it'll allow you to ride all the way down almost to the exit of the park near Fifth Avenue. Arguably, again, the best area to go sledding in Central Park. We'll snap back to present day since it's not so cold, and we're going to keep continuing just along that midsection of Cedar Hill. As we do walk over, we're going to start coming to one of the original archways for the park. This is going to be Glade Arch. Before we get to that, we're going to see some really beautiful flowers that are blooming over here. So some of the people that might have joined us the other week when we did Sheep Meadow might be surprised to learn that these beautiful flowers are grape-leaved anemones. Some of the same flowers we saw the other week, but that looked a little bit different. Some of these flowers have different colors, but they typically all bloom around the fall time. So it's really cool to come in the fall as things are getting a little chillier and still see beautiful flowers blooming. What we're going to see just behind these, we're going to see some other beautiful plants like these ferns, which just blew my mind away with some of these different colors and contrasts. But really cool to have a lot of these different flowers lining a lot of different beautiful architecture like Glade Arch. This is one of the original 33 bridges and arches created in Central Park. It was created by one of the designers, Calvert Vaux, and it's made of New Brunswick sandstone. Originally, this bridge was titled Bridge Number 8, but of course we do see a better name coming to it with Glade Arch, something a little bit more fanciful. And this bridge was actually made to take horse-drawn carriages over the top of it to Fifth Avenue. We'll walk on top of this and see how wide it is, as well as see some of the other beautiful architecture. Before we do go under though, I do want to launch one of the first polls we're going to have today. I kind of want to get an idea of who has joined us for a weekly walk before. We really like doing these weekly walks, and we'll kind of see what our attendance is like. After you vote in this, it will disappear. But we'll continue down now and go just through Glade Arch and wrap around to the top side of it. We will see some of these beautiful designs on the side of Glade Arch, but the real beautiful architecture is actually going to be just on top. So as we start to walk through, we'll hang a left, basically do kind of a little U-turn, saying hello to this puppy as we walk by, and coming to a nice little view over the path we just walked down. You can see a little bit of Cedar Hill, but you never get a full taste of it. So we're going to walk just over Glade Arch, and we can see how it's starting to widen out over here. And that was because, again, these used to be, this arch in particular, used to be used to bring horse-drawn carriages from the carriage path out to Fifth Avenue. Today, it is of course not used for that, but we can still see that large widened path, a remnant of the history of this archway, created back in 1862. And as we come over, we can see some of that beautiful architecture on these stone abutments. Again, made out of New Brunswick sandstone, but just beautiful detailing we can see all along the top of this arch in particular. And as we do continue just over the arch, we'll come to the southwestern corner of Cedar Hill. And there's always these beautiful different species of trees as well as tree coverage. So if you're looking for a shady spot to enjoy a nice bench or area in the park, this is certainly a great spot located around East 78th Street. As we do come over to some of these more open field areas, we can see a few different types of coniferous or needle leaf having trees, as well as arguably my favorite type of coniferous tree in the park, this Japanese cryptomeria. If you look a little bit closer, we can see some of the really tiny little scaly or needle-like leaves on this, as well as some of these adorable little pine cones, which eventually dry out and look a little like this. These are maybe the size of a nickel, so not really too big, very, very tiny, like a button size. And if you look at the bark, you can see what most of these types of cedar trees have, that kind of peeling bark. Japanese cryptomeria is actually just known as a Japanese cedar, or in Japan, they're typically known as shugi, but they fit in very well with the Cedar Hill area, giving that classic cedar type bark, as well as just a beautiful shape. I love the symmetry of this tree and just how perfectly cone-like it looks. While we are over here actually looking at this tree, did happen to notice something just over to our left. You can see a squirrel over here. Looks like he's got his head in the ground, as well as a bird. Now what that squirrel is doing, he's digging a little hole. You might see little holes like this one popping up through the park. And what those are holes that squirrels have made to cache or store food. You can imagine during winter, there's not too much food available. So you'll regularly, especially in the fall, see squirrels digging holes about 3 centimeters below to store different types of nuts and food. Same thing like we do with our storage cabinets. Squirrels, amazingly enough, can create hundreds of these, and they'll be able to remember about 40 to 80% of the locations. Imagine burying 300 different holes of food and being able to remember where at least about 100 to 150 of those holes are. And they can actually do that after snow is completely blanketed the area. Really cool to see. Sometimes they even make fake ones if they think you're watching. The other thing we can see, if I zoom in a little bit, is a bird just over in the middle area. I'm not the best picture, I know. It's a little hard to get pictures of birds before they fly away. But what I want to point out is that we get a lot of migratory birds passing through Central Park. And during the different seasons, you can see a lot of different species here that are maybe here for a few days, a few weeks, or only a few months. This bird on our left is actually a migratory bird known as a veery. A veery is part of the thrush family, and they're actually only visiting Central Park during the month of September. If you see a bird that looks like this after, it's probably going to be a hermit thrush or wood thrush. But if you want to see a veery, really you have a short window, which is just in the month of September. So really cool that we were able to spot what I'm pretty sure is a veery over here on the left. So come to Central Park, and during every season, you can see different wildlife and different plants as well. As we start to continue back to that lower path of Cedar Hill, we're going to start making our way just out over towards the East Side Drive. As we walk down this path, we'll see not only more beautiful trees, we can see the Low Boat House, that restaurant, an area where you can rent rowboats tucked away just in the bottom right corner. And eventually we're going to come just over to the East Side Drive. We're actually going to jump on the East Side Drive and cross the street over to the running and walking section because we don't want to get hit by a bicycle. And as we jump over there, we'll start making our way up this path. So some people know Cedar Hill as Cedar Hill, but if you're a runner, you may know Cedar Hill as Cat Hill. And the reason being is because of this very well hidden statue on the top left corner. This happens to be my favorite statue in Central Park. It is called Still Hunt. Still Hunt is this giant kind of jaguar panther sitting just on top of a natural pedestal of Manhattan mica schist, the bedrock of New York. This is a piece sculpted by a man named Edward Kemys. And Edward Kemys was actually originally an axeman working for the park to clear this landscape before Central Park was being created. He loved wildlife, and on one of his lunch breaks one day, he went down to the Central Park Zoo and saw a German sculptor sculpting a wolf head. This inspired him to basically abandon his career as an axeman and start practicing and learning sculpting. He would go on to become a very famous sculptor, and luckily we have one of his most beautiful, in my opinion, works here in Central Park. This Still Hunt is one of the only unplaqued statues here in Central Park, and it's so perfectly placed, it's so naturalistic, it just glances down like there's a real jaguar ready to pounce on unsuspecting runners and bicyclists. This is a statue that regularly goes unnoticed, but it offers beautiful views from both the top and the bottom. Absolutely love the placement of this statue. And again, located, we can see just beyond Cedar Hill along the East Side Drive. A really cool piece that was placed here in 1883. As we continue walking down, we've made it past Still Hunt without being pounced on. We'll walk just up, and as we look over to our right, we're going to see plenty of other different beautiful coniferous trees. These are some different kind of Hungarian pines that we'll see around here. They create a lot of these different cool shelf type growth. But there's going to be a lot of different species of both coniferous and broadleaf trees that you can find throughout Cedar Hill's landscape. As we do walk up just a little bit more, we are going to come up to a nice little crosswalk where we can cross in safety and get over to one of our ending locations for the walk today. We're going to walk just over here under the cover of the trees to end our walk. But before we do, let's flash back to a little bit of mid-1900s history here in Cedar Hill. Central Park was not always the nicest area. A lot of people that lived in New York, especially during the mid-1900s, know that Central Park didn't have the best reputation. One of the ways Central Park was able to really be fixed up and to change people's perceptions on the park were through different happenings. Happenings were a new idea back then, but they were different types of concerts, events, and things that would draw people into the park to show them that parks are really nice spots. They're great areas to do public events and really to interact with one another, spread each other's culture, and learn a little bit about each other. This was actually from one of the first happenings to ever occur in Central Park, and it actually occurred right here on Cedar Hill. This is going to be a cartoon performance. It was from May 15th, 1966, and what basically happened here was a 105-foot canvas was spread out over this area. There were different art materials brought, and it was meant to just have people come and interact and make their own painting on here. It was a very open-ended event, and you could actually tell from a newspaper quote, it said this event would go until it was either finished, until it rained, or until it got too dark to keep painting. So this was an event meant to bring people in throughout the whole day, no starting time and no really ending time. Just again, encouraging people to pass through the park and use it as they will, very naturally. I do want to launch real quick one of our last polls. I just want to continue with the idea of our weekly walks, and I want to see how many weekly walks you've attended. Maybe this is your first weekly walk. Maybe you've been on a couple with us. Maybe you've been on a lot. Maybe you've joined us for all weekly walks. I believe we've had about 22 to 23 weekly walks, including this one. So maybe you've joined us for all 23, which is amazing. We're extremely happy to keep doing this, and we're happy that everybody seems to enjoy it. So if you could help us out a little bit, just let us know maybe how many you've attended. Really great to see a lot of people returning to these weekly walks and learning about different areas of the park. And as we continue these walks, we'll also learn about some of the areas we've already touched on, but we'll go a little bit deeper in some of the history, and we'll even see them during the different seasons, because of course fall is approaching. So in just a little bit, we're going to get a lot of beautiful color change from a lot of the trees around Central Park. But we're going to continue just down to our ending spot for our walk today. We'll take a little look though at that landscape and what it looks like now. Compared to that last picture, we can see some of the same buildings just peeking over, but of course, many of the trees have grown a little bit more and helped to block that out, which is good because we're coming to the park for nature as opposed to really architecture, which we can see just about anywhere in New York. But as we continue walking over this meadow, we'll walk just over to where the tree cover is. And we're gonna end our tour right in the middle of Cedar Hill on the peak of it. And we'll end at a beautiful location, one of the many naturalistic rustic benches that you can find throughout the park, constructed by the Central Park Conservancy's maintenance and rustic team. And in this area, it's really perfect because we can see a lot of the different species we're looking at in terms of trees. We can see some of the Norway spruce down here we started with. We can see some of these cedars, the red cedars that give Cedar Hill its name, as well as some of these shelfy type of Hungarian pines growing alongside us. So a beautiful view that captures a little bit of everything that Cedar Hill has to offer. Certainly a beautiful landscape to come, whether you're going sledding or just walking around and enjoying the beautiful coniferous trees. But this will bring us to the end of our walk. Real quick, I'll actually end that poll and we'll get an idea of who's joined us. So we see a lot of people joining us for about 11 to 19 being the most common, but a lot of people have joined us for just about all or most of the walks, which is super exciting to hear. I see we have about 12 people out of the couple hundred that we have here today that are on their first walk. So thank you for taking your first walk with us. We hope you'll come back continuously next week. We're gonna be continuing these every Wednesday at 12:30. And next week we have the pond with Ian. So come back and join us for the pond and different walks that are going to be occurring every Wednesday at 12:30. If you do want to learn about the park in a little bit longer of a time frame, we do offer about 45-minute long virtual tours that happen on a lot of Tuesday and Thursdays. Tomorrow, Thursday at 3 p.m., we actually have a tree walk if you want to learn about a deeper look at the trees and the history of trees here in Central Park. But no matter whether this is your first walk or your 23rd walk, I want to thank you so much for joining us. There's plenty of other ways to stay involved in the park, like on our website, centralparknyc.org, where you can either share stories about Central Park, you can download virtual walks and tours, you can see on our YouTube channel all the past weekly walks we've offered, as well as find other learning materials for both kids and adults. But no matter how you want to learn about the park, we're happy you're doing it with us, and we hope you enjoy. So from all of us here at the Conservancy, please stay safe and be well. I'll leave this chat open just for a little bit longer, so if anybody does have a question, Ian or myself can answer. Once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.